guys, it's been quite a while since I last did like a book related video. It's just been a really crazy year. It's almost been a year since I last did it. That's a funny little coincidence. I'm just like in the mood to talk about books. But this time it's just going to be focused on one book that I've recently read for my uni course, and that is Angela Carter's Nights at the Circus. This is a really fascinating book to study, and I'll go into why I think that. So this book follows a main character called Feathers, spelt with double V because it's a play on word for her identity. She is it's implied that she's a bird / woman because she has really big wings. Just to kind of like explain that point, Angela Carter focuses on the magical realism genre, and that is why Feathers has wings. It's never like explained why. It's just part of the reality that she's building, and it's just, as a reader, you have to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit, and that's what I really like about this book. It really challenges your readership, and also challenges Carter's authorship as well, because it has like metafictional aspect to it as well. I guess the most striking thing for me in this book is the study of feminism, and the reason why I really like that is because it's done in such an unusual and complex way. So you have Feathers, who really challenges the idea of objectification in women, because she objectifies herself in order to tell her story, which involves a lot of kind of sexual threat and sexual violence. There's other female characters in this story that also have a very potent and important voice, such as Lizzie, who is the adopted mother to Feathers, and she has a very political voice, perhaps more obvious than Feathers' voice, which is more complex in explaining kind of gender politics. So Lizzie says very generalised points about female oppression, such as the idea of marriage. I think at one point she mentions how prostitution and marriage are the same thing, because you kind of give yourself away to a man. And actually, what's interesting about this is that because the females in this book are all prostitutes, pretty much, who also work at the circus, and Carter gives them this positive voice and positive life, because she kind of subverts the expectations that we as readers have towards prostitutes, because, let's be honest, in a lot of books they're not portrayed in the most positive light. So what Carter does is really interesting, and in a way they're kind of more powerful than married women, because at least there's something in it. They get money from it, whereas if you get married, back then you had to give your money to your husband, and so there's a lack of agency in marriage, whereas in prostitution there is more of a sense of authority, but obviously you're still subjected to violence and inferiority. But I guess what I found really interesting about those portrayals is that a lot of the time the females have to objectify themselves and become objects, as well as subjects, in order to critique the society that they live in. So it's interesting because Carter is challenging you to kind of go back and revise on history a little bit, and it makes you aware that by addressing these political gender issues, you're also facing it and learning something from it, and by taking that learned experience away from it, you could be part of a change, perhaps. So I think it's really interesting because a lot of the time, feminist writers don't focus on the gritty side of, you know, gender politics, because they think that by taking that away, they are also, it's really complex, but bear with me, but by taking that experience away, they think that they are moving away from that lifestyle, but actually it's important to address those issues, and that's what Carter does really well. So it's very gritty at times and quite crude. The language that she uses is purposefully gross at times to kind of exemplify the unnaturalness of male dominance and exploitation towards women. So, yes, I hope that makes sense to you. I'm sure there'll be other explanations on the internet that are more clear than that. Another thing that I find really interesting about this text is the representations of femininity, which are very unusual compared to conventional standards of beauty. So an interesting thing to compare this to is the idea of a classical body. You know, it's represented in so many texts, it's represented in films, in Renaissance art, such as in statue sculptures and paintings. There's this, you know, conceived body that's smooth and pure and pristine and shaped in lots of similar ways. But then in Carter's book, she subverts that notion of femininity by presenting her characters with different aspects of femininity. So Feathers, for example, has masculine elements to her personality, but also feminine. So her flirtation with men and people is very feminine, but then some of the things that she does are probably more masculine, such as her eating habits. There's one chapter in this where it's very vivid, the description of her eating. It's very like, it's kind of like a celebration of eating and just not caring what people think of you. So she kind of just like scoffs her mouth in its really descriptive way. And she's also very much at the centre of attention because of her big wings, and she sometimes takes up a lot of room, and this can intimidate men who usually are at the centre of the attention. So I think that's what I really like about it as well, to have like these grotesque descriptions of femininity at times, just because I think it's a true representation of femininity. You know, a lot of the time people think that there's just one way to behave as a female, and if you don't behave in this way or that way, then you are not feminine, and that is just so not true. It's just a social construct, and when we're alone and not around people, we all secretly indulge in kind of doing gross things, and by gross things I mean like, you know, not caring about how we look. So, you know, we can have our scruffy days, we can scuff our face in with chips or whatever, and that shouldn't take away our femininity, basically, is what I'm trying to say in this ramble. So yeah, I think that was another aspect to this book that I found really fun and unique and just really interesting. But yes, I'm going to conclude this video here now. If you're interested in, I guess, women history and just really bizarre magical realism, then I think you'll really love this. I think everybody should read this. It's one of those really important contemporary novels that says a lot about our history and society. And also, it's just really lovely to have different representations of women in this, you know, that tell different stories. There's more confident women, there's more conventional women, there's more, you know, people with different experiences, but one thing that they have in common with each other is that they've all, in some ways, been subjected to violence and inferiority by men. And I think that in some ways, every single female has had an experience related to that to some extent. I know I have. And I think that's why it's so important to read, especially as a female. Obviously, like, if you're a male and want to read this, that's great too. I highly encourage you. But I think it's just really refreshing to have, like, you know, these different visions of femaleness. And yeah, it really does make you reflect and think about not just your own experiences, but women's experiences generally in society. So yeah, this is a book that will definitely stick with me for a long time, and I'd love to return to it. It's one that you appreciate more if you study feminist theory and postmodern theory, because there's a lot of postmodern strategies in this that are really complex, but fascinating. So yes, it's one of those ones that I recommend also doing further reading on. Yes, thank you for watching this video, and if you want to see more of these videos, then comment below what kind of videos you'd like me to do, and I'll see you soon.